Cloud. Okay, it's January 24th, 2022 at 4:03 p.m. Calling the Wellington Board of Education Curriculum Committee to order. We have a what looks like a simple agenda. Is only one item: review set number 1, which is the spring 22 reading and writing units, and provide feedback. You were sent all of those units, and it was probably 250 pages. So, Aaron and my thought in discussing this was, I don't know that it makes sense for us to go through every one page by page. If you have specific ones that you want to speak to, or if you just want to get a quick overview again from Aaron and Kristen as far as the layout of the units, and speak to maybe one, and then just talk about the progression of what this set looks like and why, and then any feedback you have from there. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Aaron, why don't you give a snapshot of what was sent out and what we're working on?
Sure. So do you want visuals, or you want me to just auditorially go through it?
Share your screen so
Okay.
you can.
Hold on a second. All right. So what I shared with everyone, so you guys have the PDF. So this is a working document. It doesn't look the same, but what everyone got links to were the unit 4s or 3s. They're typically the spring unit. So you'll see like a later number, but the spring unit for both writing and reading in every grade K through 8. So you should have, the only exception was grade 7, which they have, their spring units are both writing. So you did get 2 writing units for grade 7. That was not a mistake. That was on purpose. That is what everyone should have received. You also received links to these 2 folders, which should house the templates, the resource templates. So there's reading and writing templates for K2, and then another set for 3-8. So you should have also had the links for those resources and templates. That is what everyone received. And then, so again, I did also send some guiding questions. Those were just to give you some direction and some lens to begin looking at this. Whether or not you use those questions, totally, that was up to you. But just wanted to make sure you guys were clear on, we didn't need exact answers to everything on those questions, just to give you a lens in which to review these. And I think that's it that was shared. And Chris and I are hoping to get, again, any feedback on formatting. I know we did already go over the format previously in a previous meeting, but any formatting issues, any content issues, hopefully grammatic mechanics, with the understanding that I do know the suggestion last meeting was made to do a glossary of terms, which Chris and I discussed, and we have kind of a running list of what we want in it, but that glossary will not be published until we're done, so we can make sure everything's in there. So we didn't produce the glossary yet, but that is in process.
And these are the spring units like now, Aaron, correct? So 2022, correct. We started here because we were hoping to have these approved quicker, so that way we could start kind of start at the end, let's say, because this is the last unit or units of the year. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
And then the remainder of the units you would be continuing to write, and those would be prepared for the start of school next year.
Correct. Yep. And you can see here we've already done unit 1. So we're just in the middle of finishing the next round, which are the unit 1s. So yep.
And I know it's going to come up because it's important to the board. Can you just speak to where you're at with teacher feedback on what was sent out?
Sure. So we rolled each unit, the unit template, and shared with grade level teams at the first staff meeting of this month. So Center received their units the first week of January, right after break, and Hall received them last week. And so grade level teams have been given these. They have the ability to provide feedback. I have not heard from teachers yet about any feedback. We will be meeting with the teams to delve a little bit more deeply and get that feedback face to face. But as of now, we have not gotten any feedback, but they have been shared and teachers have access. And we asked them to sit as a grade level team and kind of go through it prior to us meeting with them. So they have questions ready for us. And it was rolled out. One other point of when we rolled it out, it was to whole staff. So even though these are just ELA units, we did roll out specifically around because of the template to the entire staff. So the entire staff of both schools has seen the template of the new for new curriculum, as well as I believe we shared the same grade. I think it was grade 3 at both staff meetings.
So as far as, I mean, you can see this is it's pretty dense. There's, I mean, we were talking about printing this and it was like 250 pages, and that doesn't include the resources. I'm not sure the best way for you to approach this. If you know you want to do a feedback by a certain date, if you want to talk about your feedback today for whatever you have, I think at some point we'll have to cut it so that we could share it with the entire board. And let them take it and either provide feedback for a period of time, and that'll be up to your recommendation, or if you're just looking for approval. So let's start with feedback. Any comments on any of the units that you received, reading or writing, any of the grades K through 8? Go ahead, Tracy.
Oh, I just wanted to say I thought they were really well explained, and the format was clear, easy to follow. I really liked the descriptions at the beginning because it kind of, before you even started reading into more of it, you understood what it was going to be and what the outcome was for that unit for the students. And I could see how it all fit together, kind of, well, part of it's probably because I have students who've gone through the school system, but also just see the progression at the end of the year of kind of building from K, because I started with K and went up to 8. So, I mean, there was different topics, but I could sort of see the building.
Good. Go ahead, Ann.
You know what I think would really help me to approach it is if I had a scope and sequence, like I noticed with kindergarten, there were a couple types of writing, very simple, you know, writing, kindergarten, persuasive, descriptive, you know, whatever, first grade, what kind of, you know, just a general term of what kind of writing. And I think that would kind of give me a cognitive structure to attach all the lessons to, if that makes sense. Just something very simple, not, you know, not elaborate at all. Just something to kind of start me out with what this is going to be about, you know.
So, and just for clarity, there will be a very detailed scope and sequence, which will show, because we need to do the pacing. Can't do the pacing yet because we're adding and subtracting. So it's hard until the unit's done to know what it looks like.
Yeah.
However, would it help you? Because this we can do. We can't do the actual days and timeline, but we do know the order. We do know the order. Like we could give you the order of each grade level in terms of, like you said, the genre.
Perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. No pacing, just so that when I started looking at it, I would know that in kindergarten, they're going to be doing this and this and this and this type of writing. And then I think the lessons would begin to make more sense to me as I could, like Tracy said, I could see as they're building, you know, taking skills from the previous genre and applying it, you know, growing it to the next genre. So,
yep, we can do that.
Thank you. Also, another question I had, and I didn't get to go into the resource file, but when you have in the far column on the right, you have like SKLB, you know, is that a book that, I'm just throwing those letters out, but would that be a book that's listed in the resource guide? And that's how you would find out what that book was?
Which, say the example again for which one?
in the far right column, I think it was the far right column, you listed a resource and maybe a page or something. Are those spelled out in the resource list?
So let me just pull it up to make sure I want to make
Okay,
sure
yeah.
I understand. Because I don't want to speak to the wrong thing. So hold on one second.
Would you be saying like if it said like letters manual page 185? Is that something like you mean something like that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if there's like a letter abbreviation of it, you know, an abbreviation of the name of the book, are they spelled out in the resource section?
So I don't know that I abbreviated any books except for letters, but that's
Okay.
actually the title. So I don't think I abbreviated any of the book titles. And the page numbers are not delineated. So that's actually, so let me show you actually what the resource, what it looks like. Hold on, let me share my screen. So you'll see here under resources, it does say, it mentions letters manual 2. So any manual I use, I mentioned, but I don't specifically list the pages up here. Those are only listed what you're speaking to kind of in the document down here. I didn't know if there's any on here specifically, this one, but yeah, but it would look something like this. Tells you that this is in Google Drive, right? It does, I typically list where to find whatever the resources is, but I don't, that's the only place you would find. So I think the answer to your question is you would only find the actual page number here or location with it, not up here. Up here is just the general resource.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Aaron, can you scroll up for me to the standards section?
Sure.
So is that the very top of the document?
This is, sorry, Denise has been doing some editing over the last few days, so you'll see
That's
some
okay.
comments here.
Good. Scroll down for me, please.
To how far?
No, right there. That's I was the one thing I noticed, and I don't know a way around this, and it's you want it as a quick reference right there. But there's a couple that have so many standards listed for a unit, and is it almost overwhelming? Do you have any thoughts on, because some of them are bold, right? You have it as a priority, and some were. Do you have any thoughts on, I don't know if it's visual, I don't know if it hit anybody else, and I wish I could pull one up that I was looking at, but it almost seemed like there was, it was one unit, there's like 50 standards, just like it was like a page and a half of all the standards. And I don't have a good solution. So I guess it's just something I observed, and I don't know if it was hard for other people to see that as well. I don't know.
But I'll piggyback off that, because when I was writing this, I had the same kind. So I was putting the standards in there, and there were some exactly what you said that were very heavy. And if there was a lesson objective that hit a standard, I included the standard. So some did have, a lot of standards. But if there were any that didn't, so then what happened in some of those heavier units, I started to go, okay, if it doesn't get hit twice, I'm not going to include that standard. Because it was just, every standard was listed for, I think, a couple of them. So I started to narrow them down and making sure they got hit twice. But the only thing I would say, and this is what my direction to be with a teacher, but I'm open to any ideas if anyone has any, would be pay attention to the bold, right? So that's first and foremost. And as long as there's not too many bolded ones, then that would be your priority anyway. But
I'm thinking it might, I agree with what you've all just been saying. And I'm thinking it might help visually if you separate them, because the boldface helps, but they're still throughout. So even to just go priority standards, reading, I'm on grade 4 reading curriculum, and there's a lot of them. So, take those bold and put them out as your priority, and then a separate section for supporting. That might help to emphasize the ones that are really being hit in this unit.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. I pulled up the 4th grade reading, and this is an example of one where see how there's much less bold. Yeah,
There's a lot.
but
I
there's a lot of
think-
standards. Yeah.
But I think it's a good idea to include them. I like
Oh, I do
Laura's
too.
idea of putting the priority first, but I think it's really good for a teacher. It's to go through them at the beginning, and it's kind of a reminder before they teach the lesson of what they want to make sure to include in that lesson, you know, which skills. But I like the idea of the priority, because those may even be new standards that are just being introduced, you know, and therefore their priorities are, yeah.
Really emphasize.
But I would
Sure,
keep
yeah.
them in there, just,
When you get these, Aaron, are these coming straight out of the manuals in this order?
No,
So you're-
because
okay.
I'm doing them. Because I did not find much a lot, like, so sometimes teachers call, I was like, yeah, it doesn't really go deep enough to say that they're hitting this. So I really, after writing the units and going through them, did the alignment to standards.
Okay.
I use them
Maybe
as a
this is,
guide.
and maybe my comment is more geared towards teachers, is that maybe those are the folks you want to ask about this, because they're the end
Yeah.
user, right?
mm,
Is there a way that we can support them when there's, literally 35 standards are listed for a unit? Is there a way that would help them to make sure there's a highlight? Are they just going to ignore anything that's not in bold? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And if you scroll down a little bit more for me, please. Keep going. So once you get in here, keep going. And you start to get these standards back in. So now the standards are in and they can see what they're tied to.
Yeah, and with the thing with these two is, the same thing comes up here, is you'll see some, if it's not a heavy, if it's not a meaty, if it's not as meaty of a question,
Yeah.
there's not too many standards. But when they're meaty questions, like when I was doing this, the standards hit a lot of the same things. So
Yeah.
they're hit on in a lot of the same questions. So I was copy and paste. So I was like, okay, wait, nope, these all go here and these all go here. So it helps narrow down, and some it does not help,
Yeah.
depending on how big the question is.
is there an important reason to keep, I noticed the standards are sequential. Is it important, and when we talked about pulling out the priority and the supporting, is there a reason to keep them sequential?
Probably easier for teachers just to identify if it's there, just to find it.
Yeah,
I would think that'd be the only thing. If
Yeah.
they're looking at, looking for R13, it's easy to find R13 if you don't know it's with all of the R's. I would assume that's the only reason, Anne.
mm,
Yeah, it is usually just cross-referencing. And then keeping, like, I do know, which doesn't necessarily get at the sequential numbers, but keeping the, like, RIs, the reading information, reading literacy, reading fluid, like keeping those groups together.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I like that for sure. Yeah. Okay. It was just a thought. I think it's something, maybe the more I think about it, it might be something to ask teachers for feedback on, just to say, is this helpful to you?
Mhm.
The way it's, or is it overwhelming? I don't know.
Mhm.
Not really content related. It's probably implementation related comments. But
Mhm.
any other comments about any of the other units?
Just gonna stop sharing so I can write down a couple notes.
I liked the diversity of the types of text you use in media, but also the diversity of the types of stories and, I guess genre as well as, format. I guess those are there seem to be a lot. So that's great.
That's Kristen Stevens. I tell her all the time when I'm doing these structured reads, I'm like, she had me in tears the other day. They're just such great stories.
Your
Yeah.
walking
I made a-
library.
I made a lot of notes about some edits, and I mean, I have like 5 pages, so would that be something you would want me to like make a copy and of the unit and then send you what I noticed? It's sometimes it's just a spacing thing, or sometimes it's a typo, and sometimes it's not sure, I'm questioning because it was a little confusing. But I don't want to spend an hour reading through all these pages to tell you each one and finding them.
Yeah, no. And so, and again, like I said, I was like, I've had one person review them. I reviewed them, but I have someone else going through them again, trying to get as many eyes. So that's definitely helpful. But what's the best way for you to get me that information? I don't want you to feel like you have to print out, scan, write on all of those 250
Well, I
pages.
could just do it in I could put it in, I don't know if I can copy the document and then, make comments on the side and then share it with you,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
because you
If
wouldn't
you-
understand my notes that I wrote in my notebook.
Yep. Yes. If you can't, I think you can comment. If you can't comment, let me know and I'll open up commenting.
I mean, I don't want to mess with what you did before, but I would like make a copy and share it, just because you did a tremendous amount of work here. So, a typos here and there are totally understandable. I'm sure that you want the best,
Oh, yeah.
the cleanest copy when it goes to being published.
No, for sure. For sure. And to be honest, that's why I have editors all around me, because I don't always see my errors. So like once I'm the one who made them, so no, I appreciate it.
Well, it's going to be a working document too. So as long
Yeah.
as it's meant to be changed and adjusted. So as we identify stuff, I think you can all see it. We did email you these as PDFs, Tracy. That might mess with some of the formatting. I don't know. But if you see anything that's like weird spacing or spellings, you should be able to, Aaron, I'm assuming the names are the exact names. So if you were to go into your Google Drive and you had the names of these documents and you Googled this document, you should be able to find it with your Wellington board address.
Okay.
And because we've shared it with anybody at wellingtonct.org can find it, if I'm correct about that, Aaron.
I should be. Yeah, anyone
And
with a
so-
Wellington email should be able to at minimum view, but that's why depending on, I might have to open up them as commenters.
Yeah.
All
And
right,
so
well, I
then
can
you-
try it.
Okay.
When we figure out and share it with you soon, but I don't know how soon. We're gonna probably decide that here.
Yeah, Aaron, you can solve that and figure that out. That, because moving
Yep.
forward, this is our first big, you look at, I got the email myself and I was like, holy cow, Aaron.
That was a ton of reading.
He did.
You and Kristen have been, this is
Yeah,
a
really.
lot.
Well,
It's
and then Phil, you said this is all of it, right? As in, no, this is just the first set.
Yeah. So this is
And
this the
it's
year?
just spring, right? Spring
Yeah.
of reading and writing,
Correct.
not math. And
Science and
It-
social studies.
it's
Yeah.
really phenomenal, the amount of work you have done, Aaron.
Yes.
Thanks. And Kristen.
Phenomenal.
But thank you.
And Kristen. And Kristen, you've been doing this for years. Are you getting to incorporate the things you've been doing for years into this? So it's,
Yes, for sure.
okay, that's good.
It's
Yeah.
nice to have the differences. It's just very nice. It's hard to do this alone, to
Mhm.
have people working on it. If I find it very difficult to just do this by myself, and also to have very clear deadlines so we know exactly when sets need to be submitted. So that's so this process I feel is working really well. And yeah, I think Aaron and I make a great team. So I think it's been going great.
I ditto that sentiment.
Laura, did you have any comments?
No, not really. It looks good to me. I was just looking at the basic overview. I've been sitting here thinking though, what comments might come up from the rest of the board or things that they may not understand. And I don't actually have anything, but that's what I've been sitting here trying to think. Is there something that will not be clear to folks who are not in education? Because to me, it's very clear and easy to follow through the organization, what you've done here. And I think we may have talked about this last time. The only thing like I was thinking is something at the very beginning to explain the standards so that they understand RI, that, the difference between RI, RF, like what those, and I think we talked about that would just like be at the beginning of the document. And maybe that was part of the glossary that we talked about, so, it's just something that's not there yet. Maybe an explanation of the priority in supporting standards, kind of how that works, that in these, the complex questions, as you were saying, the essential questions, you could hit on like every standard, but there are certain ones that you're focused on that are hit on more in the unit than other ones. But that's all I got. I got nothing else.
So
I,
go ahead, Erin.
so I was gonna say my suggestion would be to any of that information, I would suggest we include it in the like overarching document, like that has the glossary that's on whatever the landing page is. Just because I don't want to include all of that in the unit documents, because those are predominantly what teachers will be using. So it'll just make it so much longer. But I do think all of that to put in like on the landing page, a document that has the glossary, that has the overview of the standards, what a priority versus supporting standard, and so all of that information would be useful in the kind of that introduction.
Yeah,
So-
almost an FAQ for,
Yeah.
the non-educators. Like,
Yeah.
here's your go-to document.
So to
Actually,
Laura's point,
FAQ is great.
how, because you're not going to have that done when you present this particular start to the board, I would assume, right?
Not the whole document. We can start, I mean, Chris, we can get together, like Chris and I know we both have like notebooks that we're just going as we do this. We're like, here's a word we need to do. And this is, so we can put something together for like the basic essentials that they're going to need.
I think so. I think if we turn our focus right now towards that presentation, I think that's important because you've been living this for a while now, and you have a bunch of teachers on this committee, right?
Mhm.
So, how to present this level of curriculum, this amount of curriculum, to the board for approval? I don't know if they're just going to snap approve it because it came through your committee. But I think the thought into what is presented is important. So would it be helpful, and this is, I guess, my question is, what do the board members feel like would be important to present to the rest of the board this first go around? If we send them this full amount of curriculum, that's going to be pretty overwhelming. And realizing that, this curriculum already, just like everything else, and Donna asked this question last meeting, like, well, are you doing things that haven't been approved yet? And the answer is yes, we're going to be, because you're always piloting curriculum and you're always modifying it. But the thing is, it's tied to standards. And so we're not modifying standards. I guess my question to you is, does it make sense maybe at your February board meeting for Erin and Kristen to really do a big picture overview, take just a unit, just like they did for you, and start there? And walk through what does a unit look like, what's included, what's not included, and then what other information do you think the board would want to be able to move through this process, and really not get stuck on, I mean, you have 250 pages in front of you. We could be here for 5 hours if we go through every page individually. So how do we move them through efficiently, but also get some feedback, and get curriculum approved? Go ahead, Ann.
I think if I were doing it, I would start with the standards and I would explain to them what the standards are and how they work. And then I would mention those codes, the RI, the RF, the W, whatever. So when they see that, they'll understand what that is. The second thing I would do, as I mentioned before, with that whole idea of just a quick overview of this is what it's going to look like in K, and this is what it's going to look like in 1. Your big topics, your big units, nothing, no details, just the big topic. And then I think if they're looking at it, it'll make sense when they see what's listed under kindergarten as a kindergarten lesson. They'll see it as part of the big picture. And then, as Phil said, I would go through a unit. I would pick a unit and explain every column. This is where the standards are. These are the resources that the teachers will use, so that they see what a unit looks like within the curriculum.
Other
Or
feedback?
lesson, are units and lessons different? Or
This is yes. So these are unit plans that you're looking at. The lesson would technically be one of those rows that tells you the objective and how it's assessed.
okay, and that you would just point that out when you were describing the unit. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Can I ask a question that just goes back to something that you said earlier, Phil, like right before you asked this question?
Mhm.
You said that there was someone was asking why we're teaching something that's not approved yet.
Mhm.
What was that like? What I mean, as far as like the units that we're rolling out right now, is that what that person meant?
I think the point is, there's the written curriculum right now that we're pulling and using Reader's Writers Workshop for. We approved the programs, but there was never curriculum written as a result from those. And so the point is, are we teaching something that hasn't been approved yet? That's the point of it.
Okay, but that's why I'm confused, because I was just saying they approved Readers and Writers Workshop. That's what we're teaching, and that's what the curriculum is going to be. And also letters was approved by the board, right?
Right, and that's the point,
what's
Kristen, is
incorporated.
the last thing that was really approved by the board when we start talking about ELA was a long time ago.
Yeah,
And it was probably just standards. And so now we're expanding on what's there. And so it's still the standards haven't changed.
Well, I remember handing Herb a book, like literally the unit book, and they passed it around and they looked through those books. And I'm just saying, I don't mean to nitpick. I'm just saying, I think we are teaching what was approved, but anyway.
The comment, just for clarity, the comment was the whole board meeting, not the curriculum board meeting. And it was in regards to science, because we were talking about developing science units. And the question was, would they be deployed before they were approved? So it wasn't around ELA.
Okay. All right. Then that makes sense, because I think we are teaching what was approved. I'm just wanting to make sure that was clear. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Well, I was just thinking about the meetings, and maybe I'm thinking hoping I'm interpreting what I hear in the meetings. We all hear things differently, but it feels like for some board members and some public that there's skepticism about the quality of the curriculum that we already have, and now what the quality of a curriculum that is written in Wellington, not bought from another town that they interpret to be doing better than we are. And so I think no matter what we present, I hate to be skeptical myself, there's going to be this underlying questions for some members of the public and the board that are saying, how is this going to be better? Because they haven't lived in the schools now, and they're not understanding some of their interpretation of what a curriculum should be or look like may not be what any school district would present to them in a board meeting. So how to get around that, I'm not sure. But I understand this, and I can't take myself out of my teacher role to say, to me, it looks clear, but I can't get rid of my background knowledge to see what they would be thinking. But I can say that they're going to look at some things, like booklets. And I remember one board member, and it might have been a previous board member, saying they want something that their parents can go and say their kid's been missing school for a time or they're behind. They want to be able to go to the computer and pull that out and teach their kid that. That is not reality.
Well, that's
That any school district curriculum is not going to be like that, because it's not, that's just not how education works. Public education works.
or a good curriculum, because there are schools that hand a teacher a manual and say, this is what you're teaching this day, and we don't want to be one of those districts, you know. And so we need to reply to those comments that's when you contact the teacher and ask what they did in the classroom and what you can do. That's not in a published curriculum like what we're looking for, you know, that you turn the page and that's what you do on January 23rd.
Right.
You know, and you're pulling resources from letters, and you're pulling them from all these different places, and you can share with us some of those resources, but other ones, it's a manual that goes to a particular curriculum in that program. I mean, I'm probably messing up my terms here, but without looking at one in front of me, some of it is you're saying you're going to go to this book to get this information, and then you're going to go to this other book for writing, you know, but it might be reading and writing in the same 7th grade, you know, unit. I don't know specifically what that is, but I trust that it's following what you're saying it is. And that's a piece that might be questioned when this is being presented, I guess. I'm kind of playing devil's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
a
I think
curriculum
we need
is-
to be prepared for that, I guess,
Go ahead, Barb.
based on my interpretation of some of the questions that have come from meetings.
I agree, Tracy, and I'm thinking what Anne was saying is, I think is kind of the way to go. This first meeting is really more educative. I have trouble with that word, but of our public, and really, let's face it, one board member right now, you know, Herb understands more. It's been a while since he's been in the classroom, but he's been on board events for a long time and knows more of education. But we're really looking at the one board member who does not have an education background, and some of our vocal folks in the public who are now attending meetings and have lots of questions about curriculum. So I think this first meeting needs to really be educating them on what curriculum is, and how it relates to standards and the programs that have been approved by the board. And you know, that the curriculum is not a day-to-day lesson plans that are published, that teachers use the curriculum unit plans and they tailor it to their children in their classroom. That's what you want.
I'm on a Zoom. I'm on a Zoom. I can't talk. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So let me, did we lose Ann? Oh, we lost her. The comments so far. So talk about, and Aaron, I wrote this down for you and Kristen, but if there's a board presentation in February, it's really start talking about standards and, you know, what the codes are, the RLs, 0.1, 0.24. What is curriculum? What is not in the curriculum? And just kind of give that big picture. We can discuss the programs that we've already purchased, which program doesn't mean curriculum also, which I think some people think it is. Get into the kind of big picture overview of scope and sequence, and maybe Aaron, just without doing every scope and sequence, maybe you're just picking one concept that is an easy one that you can see all the way through, if that makes sense. So you can say, hey, if we're working on, you know, reading for information, this is what it looks like in 2nd grade. This is how it would appear in 5th grade. This is what it would look like in 8th grade. If that's an easy way to do it. So it's not seeing every piece of scope and sequence, but just because it'll save you some time.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just don't know if it's getting at the same point, because that would show progression rather than content, like rather than genres. And I think I could do both, or I could do one or the other. But I think, Anne, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anne, I think what I heard you say is you were more interested in the content and in the sequence of the content. So like, but I will say it's always the 4 things. I'm pretty sure, and Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, But from what I've been doing, every grade level pretty much has reading for information. It usually has a narrative unit, it has an informational unit, it has it both in reading, it has it both in writing, fantasy, but then it gets a little bit more specific as they get older. So like narrative might go from general narrative to like fantasy or dystopian, but they all tend to follow a similar process. So, and I will say that putting those in like a kindergarten, just putting it sequentially, like here's your reading, here's your writing, as long as I don't have to assign months to it, that's doable. It's the assigning months that starts to get a little tricky and trying to figure out the timing.
Yeah, I see that as more as theme than I see scope and sequence. So I just want to make sure that's what Anne's thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking the big picture, like if, and I'm even looking at kindergarten and a single word, even if it is the genre of writing under the heading writing. And so then if they saw a lesson, they would see where it fit into, and then you might include the fall too, even though it won't appear within these curricula, but they would see the whole year of what the big picture would look like. If that's not too much to do now before you've developed, all of those other units.
Or without doing the year, doing what's the unit before, is if that's what
that's
Anne's
true.
looking for, and what's the unit afterwards.
Okay,
Even
yep.
just the
That
names
might
of
be a
the-
manageable way to attack it. Sorry, Kristen, I just cut you off.
No, it's okay. Even just the names of the units tell quite a story. So if you have the title of each unit, that I think that would give you what you're looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
All right, and then the last thing was, or the third thing was, show a unit, explain, walk through each step, what's each box mean, what's each section, show the resources, and let them know what's in each of the units. And then Aaron, I think Laura, the comment that you just made may be something we want to think about big picture moving forward, because the whole idea here is that this is supposed to be on the website in the future, right? And so if there are some resources for parents, and maybe we're not thinking about too minuscule here, keep it big picture. What are the resources for 7th grade math? What can they go to? You want a good link, go to IXL, and whatever concept you're working on, go to that. You could keep that really big picture without having to get into really specific, well, this is what we did today, and this is the supporting details that what you can use with your child at home. That's not the level of what should be in our curriculum. Anything else that you think that for as far as a board presentation goes? So if we did that for the board presentation at the February meeting, and then shared these documents with the board, hoping for a March approval, do you think that's unrealistic?
No.
I think to be prepared there, needs to be transparent, but there could be a lot of questions about what a lot of things mean.
I also feel like I kept a running list too while they were talking, and I have everything you said. I did also put on like a simple glossary of terms, like the bare bones, what do they need to understand to read this document, so that we have that going to for the presentation.
I think that's going to be the case either way, Tracy, no matter what the content area is, because let's face it, the curriculum is written for teachers to implement. It's not written for, what I'll call a layperson, somebody that doesn't have educational background. These are people that have teacher certification, that have been through, 4-year programs plus masters often, sometimes a second master's or a 6th year, and they're picking up that document and they know what they are, and they have the letters document. That's what it's really written for, so we can implement the curriculum with fidelity. And the additional resources are great, but that's who it's written for. And so I think in the presentation, Aaron, that's really what it's going to get down to is, it's just like this group. I mean, you're a group of educators, and for you to go through the 250 pages of documents, you know, you don't need to go through every line. You need to see that you can see that the information is there, that the resources are there, that there's some, and to your point, like you can see the themes and understand where they're headed, that type of thing.
And you know, I just want to emphasize what you just said, Phil, because I think we really need to emphasize that this is written for teachers who are professionals, because too often members of the general public do not view teachers as professionals, and that's where they want that day-to-day written out curriculum. So that emphasis that this is not written for lay people, this is for teachers who have gone through a lot of training and education to become teachers. I just think that's important to emphasize.
You know what I think is important to share too is that this is not all brand new. This is what teachers have been teaching, you know, since they adopted, well, even before Readers and Writers Workshop, and that it's kind of a culmination of all the good things that teachers have been teaching that are just trying to get it down into a document. I think I'm right in saying that. I don't think this is all brand new. You know, I think it's, you know, Kristen, it's everything in your head that you've been doing with teachers for years and years, and, you know, and Erin, your expertise. And then I'm sure you've had a lot of input from teachers too, and will in their responses, you know, to the document and their recommendations when they work through the document too.
So if everyone's okay with that timeline, then what I'll do is, Aaron and Kristen, we can chat about a presentation. We'll put it in the front end of the February board meeting, the regular meeting. And then what we can do is release, Tracy, send out any of your feedback, spelling, any of that stuff, send it in to Aaron. And what we can do is release that set to the board in advance. We could, you know, and they can review anything they want. And then the March meeting would be any final questions and any final last minute adjustments and looking for approval. And that will be up to, you know, the board committee members that are on this committee, obviously, to advocate for that. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Any
So
other?
that's
Sorry.
the original calendar, right? Because it said February 8th for this one in the original calendar, but now we're changing it to March.
I'm not as concerned, Kristen, with when the items are approved as much as I'm more concerned about your writing timeline. The board could say, you know what, we want to come back in August and that's when we're going to approve it, but understanding that we're going to be rolling these out. And so that's, you know, we're working through this process. They may want more time just to review it just because it's a lot of information. So as long as your writing timeline does not change, because we could always approve three sets in one meeting if we wanted to. I'm not as concerned about that piece as I am you guys keeping it going. Good.
Yep.
All right. Listen, I just want to commend the two of you. I know, Kristen, for you especially, this has been a multi-year process, and you probably got some gray hairs in that red hidden in there that are directly linked to curriculum work and the amount of work. So thank you both for getting us to this point. And like I said, when Aaron sent that email and it came out, and I looked at it and went, this is a whole year, right? It shows the amount of work that you both have done, and I greatly appreciate it. I think that the staff will too, as we move forward. So I look forward to getting this out. If there's nothing else, any other comments for presentation or to the specific documents?
I want to thank
Yes,
everyone
thank
for
you.
looking. I was going to
Go
say
ahead.
thank you to everyone for looking at it, for looking through it all and providing feedback.
And it's
I'll
been a
take
very
another look.
supportive-
I had a hard time getting into it. Now that I know how to get in, I can take a better look. So
Yep. Share any of that feedback. You can email it into Erin, and she can adjust from there. All right.
And I just want to say thanks because this has been a very supportive group over the years. So I really appreciate your support of education and our kids.
thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you. So just a question, Eric, of how, if I got this to you by the end of the week or by Monday, is that like, because we have another board meeting tomorrow, we have a board meeting tomorrow, that's gonna take me
Good time.
a night.
Yeah, no, please, because I am still trying to catch up from our weird week last week. So Chris and I just replotted our whole week. So I probably won't look at the edits until Friday anyway. So yep.
Okay, so I have a few nights, I don't have to get to it tonight again, because
No,
you
Tracy,
guys
I-
are tired from
honestly,
the last couple nights.
Yeah.
if they're only edits, I think you have time, because I mean, you
Yeah.
really, if we're talking about, you know, a March approval, she can make edits in the middle of February if she wanted to. If it's more content based, I think that's a bigger conversation.
Yeah, no, it's like typos or, you know, a spacing thing. It's minor things, but it's just because it's such a large volume of information to
Yep.
be easily missed.
Yeah.
Good enough. All right, if that's anything else? All right, good deal. It is, we can adjourn. It is 4:54. Have a great night, all.
Thank
too.
you.
You too.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks.